So the first question is, why did you choose this story? Why did you want to write this story? I can say for me, I've always wanted to write this story. I was aware of it because of the Hostetler family history since I was a child. And so ever since I became a teenager, I think, ever since I started writing, I've thought this was the story. This had to be a novel. What about you?
It is a compelling story. The story always attracts me. One of the things that really struck me strongly in writing this story was how this relates so much to us as Christians today, with all the persecution that's going on in other parts of the world, but also here in this country. We're not facing those kinds of physical persecution, the violence, but we're facing a lot of objections to our point of view, our belief in the Bible, our belief in God's laws, and we have to have that steadfastness to stand against what the world is trying to tell us is right, that our ideas are old-fashioned, they no longer apply. And just how Jacob and his family stood firm against the attacks that they faced.
Yeah.
That is such a good message for us today.
Northkill is about standing firm.
It is about standing
It's
firm.
about faith.
Yes.
It's about courage. It's about standing for what you believe, even in the midst of horrible,
Yes.
horrible circumstances. So, was this difficult? Was it hard to research? How did you get all the information? That's a question I often get.
A lot of research involved, but we were very blessed in this family to have as much information about this incident as we do, and family researchers who have researched it extensively. But it was really, as you know, it's horrific to think about the actual event of the massacre itself. Researching their lifestyle, their lives at that time, was really interesting and fun to do. But when you get down to the actual attack, very painful to think of, because it's your own family members, and you really identify with them and with Christians around the world who are suffering such terrible persecution. And that was very difficult and emotional to write.
It was always surprising to me how much of the story actually exists in historical documents, in Pennsylvania state archives, in not just in the family tradition, but in the family tradition. So I'm astounded by how much of it is out there. Though, of course, as a historical novel, you fill in the gaps, you create conversations, but still, so much of the story is well known among the Hostetler family and the Amish Anabaptist community. It's one of those seminal incidents that has defined what the doctrine of non-resistance is among our family. Now, I'm descended from two of the Hostetler members of this book, the people featured in this book, John and Jacob. I'm descended from. What about you?
I'm descended from Jacob through John, and probably from other members of the family too. I haven't researched it.
I said Jacob. I meant Joseph.
You meant Joseph.
I am descended from John and Joseph, the two sons, two of the surviving sons of Jacob.
Yes, and I'm descended, I know, through Jacob and through John, but I'm
John
sure
was the son who wasn't taken captive.
Yes, he was not taken captive. So
Right.
I've had to give him a good-sized role in the
Right.
in the
Right.
story too. I'm sure there are other members of the family, probably that both of us are related through, we have ties to.
Right.
But that's something we have to research more intensively to find it.
Yeah,
So,
speaking of more intensive research coming, there is a sequel. Joan, why don't you talk about that?
The Return, which is the story of the Joseph, Christian, and their father Jacob, their captivity among the Indians, what their lives would have been like among the Indians. And this is really fascinating to research the Seneca, where Jacob was, and the Delaware, among which Joseph and Christian were held captive, and their lives, and then how Jacob, the very exciting story of Jacob and how he escaped and came back, and how then he and the other family members really worked to find out where the two younger sons were and how they could bring them back home again. And then once they came home, of course, their readjustment to their Amish community and their Amish family, which was pretty bumpy, I'm sure, in many ways.
Yeah, it was not just the massacre itself, it was the ensuing events that have shaped our family's
Yes.
history.
Yes,
And
very much.
so, last thing is just to talk a little bit about the response we've gotten. I'll go first because I've been really gratified by the response of readers, the number of people who, when I asked them to endorse Northkill, responded just overwhelmingly with wonderful words about the book. And of course, the story is gripping. We had great source material to start with. But the responses, for me, anything that my wife and kids will read is a plus for me,
Exactly.
when I write it. And this is that kind of a story.
Exactly, it really is. The response has been very gratifying. As you said, we've just had amazing feedback about this story and how it's touched people's lives, and how many Hostetler relatives we have met through this story, people who have a tie to the Hostetler family somewhere along the line. And it's been wonderful to meet those people and
It is.
to hear a little bit about their stories.
To make those connections. For years, pretty much all my life, part of the shorthand of the family connection is when I meet somebody who says, oh, my grandmother was a Hostetler, or somebody in my family. The shorthand that I've always used is, well, is there an Indian massacre in your family history? And if they say yes, then of course we know we're related somehow. We don't always know how, but that's how important this event is. And the story that Northkill tells, I think, just beautifully captures that event and the impact of it, not only on our family, on Hostetlers and Millers and Yoders and Stoltzfusses and more, but also on the Amish, the Mennonite, the non-resistant Anabaptist community. It's an influential event, and I think it makes a great story as well.
It really does.